means the exit is that far right door. So, anyone never been here before? Is this anybody's first time in the Academy? Okay, a couple of us, fabulous. We'll welcome you guys to the Academy, and welcome back to all my returning alumni as well. If you are new, take a look at the back of your pencils. What are we missing? Erasers, yeah, that's right. That is on purpose. It's because we do something in this class called rough sketching. So what that means is we're going to start our sketches really light, really loose, really messy. And we're only going to go back and darken up the stuff that we really like, that we really want to keep. By doing that, those lighter lines are just going to fade into the background, so we don't need erasers. We're going to be drawing the same way that the animators have been over at the Disney studio for 100 years. So, character that we're drawing today, he is the goofiest of the Sensational Six. He's funny, he's silly, he's one of my personal favorite characters. We're going to be drawing Goofy himself for this class today. Are you guys ready to get started? Alright, let's do it. So Goofy has a very long face. He's got a very long jaw. So when I start my circle, I want to start it towards the top of my page that I have plenty of space underneath for his mouth. I'm going to start my circle about the size of like a baseball or an orange, but you can go as big as you'd like. You have a lot more space on your page than I do. Lock your wrist, lock your elbow. Use that full rotation of your shoulder to get these nice circular motions going. And as you can see, I'm going around a ton of times with my circle. I'm not just picking one and going for it. The best part about rough sketching is if you need to adjust anything, go back, you can always just add more light lines till you find the shape you like the most. Once I've got a circle in place that I like, I'm going to go ahead and add in some guidelines. I'm going to start by cutting this circle right in half from top to bottom. And I'm actually going to bring that line pretty far down on my page here. That's going to help me keep his jaw nice and symmetrical like I mentioned before. Next line we got to add is his eye line. Now Goofy has some really big, really expressive eyes. So this line is going to go just above the bottom of my circle. I'm barely cutting out the tiniest section of that circle along the bottom there. And now it looks like one of those very reasonably priced lollipops that we sell. But we gotta draw in Goofy's jowls. He is based on a hound dog. That's what his design is based off of. So he's got some big jowls. We gotta draw those in. So let's sculpt out a couple of shapes for those. They're gonna be these little egg shapes, little ovals on their side. They should be about as wide as your circle is. So if you wanna measure, give yourself some points to go off of, absolutely feel free to. I'm gonna start over here on this left-hand side, and I'm gonna start sketching out these ovals, again, just using that full rotation of my shoulder. And it is gonna cross over that center guideline just a little bit. And I'm going to add one more on the other side. They are going to overlap just a little bit in the middle here. But it's going to look like we've got an orange and a couple of eggs. A very balanced breakfast for this morning. And that is going to give us the basic construction for Goofy. So now we can go in and actually add in some of his features. So first thing that we like to start with on a lot of our characters is his nose. That's a good anchor point to build everything around. So his nose is going to be another one of these like little ovals. It's going to be squished right here underneath that circle. So I'm going to go ahead and start sketching in a ton of ovals. It is pretty wide. It's going to stretch a little bit across both of these ovals that I added in for his jowls here. Once I've got a nose that I'm pretty happy with, I'm pretty confident with this shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and start to darken this up or lock this in. Now, if you've never been here before, or if you've never heard that term before, locking in just means pushing a little bit harder on your pencil to really darken up the lines you like the most, and that's what's going to help those lighter ones fade into the background, like I mentioned earlier. As you can see, once you start to darken up certain lines, your eye is automatically drawn to those lines, and those lighter ones really start to fade into that background. That's exactly what we're going for. Now, this character did debut in black and white, so I'm going to go ahead and shade in his nose with the side of my pencil, give myself a little bit of contrast to my drawing. Just helps to add a little bit of the suggestion of color, since I don't have a bunch of colored pencils up here to work with. Now, Goofy's snout does stick out towards us. We want to make it look like it exists in a 3D space. Not that he would not run into a wall. That is something that he definitely would do, but that's not the look that we're going for this drawing here. So we're going to add a couple of snout lines. I'm going to start by going right over the nose with this stretched out rainbow here. He's going to have two of these snout lines. This first one is going to be the biggest one. It's going to extend pretty far across his nose here. And once you have that stretched out rainbow, you're going to go a little bit above, right up to that guideline. You're going to add one more that's a little bit shorter. And that's just giving us a little bit of depth to our drawings of Goofy, showing that his nose is poking out towards us and not just sitting flat on his face here. Now, I mentioned that Goofy's a pretty happy-go-lucky character, so we gotta give him some nice big cheeks. He's gonna be smiling really, really big. We're gonna be giving him what's called an open-mouth smile or a laughing smile. That's usually how you see him walking around in the park. It makes it really obvious that he's really excited to see you, even from really far away. So first thing we gotta do is add in his cheeks. They are gonna stick out of that circle a little bit. I'm gonna start over here on this left-hand side, right next to this snout line. And I'm going to draw this big candy cane hook that pops out of my circle and comes back down to connect to that horizontal guideline here. And that's going to be that nice big cheek shape to show that he's smiling, really nice and big. And I'm going to go ahead and add one of those on either side, like so. You can go ahead and lock those into place as well. But just drawing in these cheek shapes is definitely not enough to show us that Goofy is really, really happy. So we are going to add in some smile lines for this character. He is a very happy guy, so we're going to draw in some nice big smile lines. What those are going to look like are these really big rainbows. They're going to sit right inside those little candy cane shapes that we just added here. Little rainbows, one on either side, sitting right inside those little candy cane shapes here. And then I'm going to turn them into little J shapes by adding these slight parenthesis curves that just pull down to touch the top of those little egg shapes that we added. They're going to look like little J's or maybe little T's, and that's going to show those nice big smile lines for Goofy here. And once we have those, we can actually go around and lock in the rest of the shape for his snout. Nothing else is really going to change about this shape. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my favorite lines going around the outside here and just locking in this shape. Just locking in the outside though. I don't want to lock in anything underneath that nose. Those are the lines that we want to fade into the background. And while we're going around and locking this in, I'll tell you a couple fun facts about this character. I absolutely love Goofy as a character, but fun fact, he didn't actually start out as Goofy. He had a very different name when he first started. Originally, he was just supposed to be a background character. He really wasn't supposed to come back. He was in a short called Mickey's Revue, and the only purpose that he had was to interrupt Mickey's concert with this very obnoxious laugh that he had. That, of course, I think we all know today, that hyuk. That very obnoxious laughter that Mickey originally absolutely despised. He was not very happy with Goofy originally. But his name in that short was actually Dippy Dog. I've got a picture up here of what he used to look like. Pretty similar to what we see today, but he definitely looks a lot more scraggly. He's got a lot more scruff on his chin. He's got some little glasses, and all of his clothes look a little bit more dirty. But this is how he originally looked, and he wasn't supposed to come back, but audiences absolutely fell in love with this character. They thought he was really hilarious, so they ended up bringing him back. And his name changed a couple of times. At one point, he was just called George. Don't know where that came from, but he was called George at one point, and then he got to the name of Goofy, which of course definitely stuck and is the name that we know him as today. Now, one big feature on a lot of silly characters are buck teeth. That's something that Goofy is very much known for. There's other characters in Disney who have this feature, like Olaf has a buck tooth, Dory has a buck tooth as well. She's a very silly character. Mater has buck teeth. Let's just show you they're very goofy, silly characters right off the bat. We're going to add in his teeth. They're going to sit right underneath each of these egg shapes, and they're going to look like these little marshmallows. So I'm going to start off with two little straight lines right underneath this left side. And then I'll connect them with a stretched out U shape. They're going to look like little marshmallows sticking out from underneath. I want to make sure that I'm rounding off all of these points because we save all of our sharper points for our more villainous characters. And Goofy is definitely the furthest thing from a villain. I don't think he could be a villain even if he tried. He's too much of a sweetheart. I'm going to add one of these teeth on either side here. One of my personal favorite facts about Goofy is that he is the only character in the Sensational Six who has a child who actually ages. So Donald Duck, of course, has his nephews, although they are technically not his children. He does take care of them as if they are his kids. But we actually see his son, Goofy's son, go through a lot of different phases. Do you remember his son's name by any chance? Max, right? Max Goof. We see him go from being a little kid in Goof Troop. We see him grow into a teenager in the Goofy movie. And we even see him going off to college in Goofy Movie 2, or Extremely Goofy Movie is what I should say. But yeah, he's the only character in this group that actually ages. Everyone else stays exactly the same age. All of the nephews never age up, really. We never see them grow at all. So kind of interesting that he's really the only one that doesn't age. I've added in some little cheek spots and some whiskers. Again, he does have a little bit of that scruffiness still left in his character design. But now we can actually go ahead and open up his mouth, give him that really, really big smile. So what I'm actually going to do is something called drawing through my drawing. So I'm going to keep this super duper light. I'm going to go back to those original little T or J shapes that I started with up here on those cheeks. I'm going to pull down these two diagonal lines through these cheek lines, through the teeth, down below his face here. And then I'm going to connect that together with a big stretched out U shape. This is going to give us this really big open mouth smile for Goofy. that's going to give us the lines for the inside of his mouth. For the lines for the outside of his mouth, I'm actually going to go to the side here, on the side of these candy cane shapes, and pull down 2 more of these diagonal lines and connect them again at the bottom here with these stretched out U. Now Goofy does have a little bit of a double chin, so before I lock this in, I'm going to go to this bottom section here, this lower lip. I'm just going to add this slight parenthesis curve that kind of pumps into that shape a little bit. And then I'm going to connect this line down next to it, so we kind of see a little bit of that double chin here. It does make him look a little bit sillier. Now Goofy's had a series of voice actors over the years, of course. He's been around for quite a while. His first debut was in 1934, so he's been around for quite a bit. He's a rather old character. His original voice actor was a guy by the name of Pinto Colvig, who was also the original voice actor for Pluto. But Pinto Colvig was actually a clown. He did not have any experience in voice acting. Walt saw his work and decided that he would be a great fit for this character. And Walt really had a sense of that, where he would find folks from all ranges of artistic areas and bring them in and have them experiment with some of these characters. So he was originally a clown. He didn't expect to voice act this character, but he came up with this wonderful voice for Goofy. And after Pinto Colvig, Bill Farmer actually took over the role, and he is the longest standing voice actor for Goofy. He's been voice acting this character for a long, long time. And he is still the current voice actor for Goofy today, so he's still carrying on that legacy. He is also the voice for Pluto as well, so that's always kind of been a thing, that Pluto and Goofy have very similar voice actors. Now, since his mouth is hanging open, what are we going to see on the inside? His tongue, right? Yeah. So we're going to draw in his tongue here. It is going to take up quite a bit of space in his mouth. Right next to this tooth over here on this left-hand side, I'm going to pull down this stretched out parenthesis shape that looks like a little waterfall kind of cascading down. And then I'm going to pull one more parenthesis shape out from underneath it, or behind it, I guess I should say. It looks kind of like the top of a little bean or a heart. That's exactly the shape we're going for. And then to make it really obvious that his mouth is hanging wide open, I'm going to go ahead and shade in everything else in the background, just to add in a little bit of depth to my drawing. Now, one of the things that made Goofy an extremely popular character is that he's got these really, really big, expressive eyes that allowed animators to kind of play with, when he would run into things, they would have his pupils bounce all around his eyes, because his eyes are actually just one big shape. There's no separation in them. It's like one big pair of goggles, almost. I'm going to start over here on this right-hand side, next to my cheek shape right here. I'm going to pull up this really big parenthesis shape that goes all the way to the top of my circle. I'm then going to bring it back down to meet at that center guideline. I'm kind of turning it into a big candy cane hook. And then I'm going to mimic that shape on the other side. So as you can see, there's no separation in these eyes at all, and that is because he is definitely a character who lacks focus. One of the funniest differences, I think, between Goofy and Pluto is that Pluto actually is a little bit more focused than Goofy, so he does have a little bit of separation. But since he is still a very silly character, his eyes do actually overlap in the center. But yeah, very funny that even though one of them can talk and one of them can't, the one who can talk is the less focused character. I find that very, very funny. But once you have these goggle shapes in here for Goofy, it kind of looks like he's seeing some things. So we're going to go ahead and add in his pupils next. You can add in any shape or size you like. Maybe you want to add hearts or stars in there. Totally up to you. I'm just going to add in these little ovals here that sit towards the bottom of this goggle shape. They don't sit right on that snout line. They kind of float a little bit above it. But again, if you want to change up this shape, give him a different shaped pupil, absolutely feel free to. Sometimes he has little birds flying around in his eyes when he gets knocked into things, when he's having a little bit of a dizzy moment. But no matter what shape or size you choose to make these pupils, you want to make sure that you darken them in really nice and dark and defined, because eyes are where we draw connections with our characters. They're super duper important. So make sure that you're pushing down nice and hard when you color in those pupils specifically. That should be the darkest part on your drawing here. Alrighty, now we gotta add in some eyebrows for Mr. Goof here. And it's gonna be mimicking this same shape, just a little bit above on the top of the eyes. I'm gonna add in another one of these little stretched out candy cane hook shapes. They're gonna pop out of the circle just a little bit and then come back down to connect on the sides here. I'm gonna add one on either side, right here. You can go ahead and lock those into place as well. And once you've got the eyebrows in place, we can actually connect the sides of his head from those cheeks up to those eyebrows. Nothing else is really going to pop out of the sides of his head. We're just missing his ears on the side here and a couple details on the top of his head. I'm also going to go ahead and lock in a little bit of the space in between his eyebrows here, just to complete the top of his head. And he does have a couple little hairs that stick out from the top, which are just like 3 little flicks of the pencil, and bam, instant haircut. He's ready for his commercial. Now, final step for Goofy. He looks kind of like Goofy the seal here, but we're going for Goofy the dog, so we got to give him some nice ears. So on either side, right above these little cheek lines, I'm going to add in these little C shapes. These are these little muscles that connect the ears to his head. Pluto has these muscles as well. They just are little C shapes. They look like he's got little headphones in right now. And his ears are actually the shapes of little baseball bats, so they get a lot thicker as they get further away from him, and they end up with this little U shape stretch out at the bottom. I'm using that nice drawing through technique again, so it's going to go right through those cheek lines, but I'm only going to lock in the stuff that I would be able to see here. You can go ahead and just lock in these lines, nice and dark here. And you can have his ears going in any direction you'd like. Maybe you want them to be like flying in the wind, or maybe he's on Goofy's Sky School, he's flying away. Anything you'd like, totally up to you. This is your artistic drawing, so feel free to take your artistic liberties with your piece. Once you have his ears nice and locked into place, that's pretty much it for our drawings of Goofy here. Anything else you want to add is totally up to you and considered extra credit. But the final mark that any artist truly needs on their page is going to be a signature. So go ahead, find a spot next to your drawing and sign your name nice and big and proud, because you have just drawn your very own portrait of the one, the only, Goofy. And with that, how did we do, everybody? Ooh, stunned silence by the beauty of your work. Fabulous. If you want for a little bit of extra credit, you can go ahead and shade in his little area around his head and his eyes and his ears, but again, that is totally optional and up to you. I did go a little bit over my time, so I am going to have to step away at this time, but I hope everybody had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for coming to draw with me. Make sure when you're leaving, you take these drawings off of your boards, take them home with you. They are your souvenirs from this class, and you've all officially graduated, so come back and join us again. Until we see you again, though, have a wonderful rest of your day, and class is dismissed. Bye, everybody.
Let's have a great big round of applause for Delaney. You're an amazing artist. Well, thank you all for joining us here at the Animation Academy. The door's on your left.